Right, we are live. Hello, and welcome back again to the second part of this enterprise show, how to, whatever you want to call it. So now we're going to do, there's been a few little changes off the back of last week's show. I've made some small changes, well, no, actually they're quite big. So first of all, the angle of the camera is different. It was pointed out to me that a lot of people were struggling to see what was happening in my hands or anything like that, because obviously the angle was from the side, so a lot of the model was obstructed, so it would have been like that. Whereas now we're above, and yeah, you'll be able to see everything that's going on now, so that's a huge improvement. Secondly, the new light came today. I bought this off a good friend, and he set me up with this light. It is awesome, and it's going to make things a lot easier, and obviously make viewing a bit more pleasurable for people as well. So thanks, Paul, for that. It's great buy, and I'd recommend anyone getting one of these. It's a Chesto or something, 3-tube. I don't know. It's a lamp. I'm sure somebody knows somewhere. So I need to know whether I'm in the right chat. So could somebody write a little message, if possible, so I can see whether I'm, because last week I didn't see all the messages that were going up because I didn't have the chat set properly. I'm on this sidebar here. So there we go. I'm on this chat here. If anyone needs to put anything, I don't know if that's the right one or the wrong one, but that's the one I'm on. Okay, so following on from that, we were doing this Airfix Spitfire, and we got very close to the end, and so we're going to carry on with that. And just briefly, before I start with that, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things that I'm hoping to move the channel forward with. So once the Airfix kit is done, I'm obviously going to move on to something else. Now I'm going to do something that's it's probably a bit insane. I'm going to do something that I've never done before. In that we're probably going to start with these little Warhammer figures. I've never put one together. I've never painted one or anything like that. So that's going to be what we're going to do next. And then from there, depending on how that goes, if that's not a complete disaster, we'll be tackling this maybe at some point. I will be putting a review of this up on the channel separately, like an open box review. And yeah, so that's the plan for those. And obviously there's other plans in the works, but I don't know which ones are going to work and which ones aren't. So they're the definites at the moment, and we'll go from there. Somehow I'm not getting the chat. I need to figure out where I've gone. Just bear with me a second. Let me go back. Let me go into the old chat. Come on. Right. Okay, I don't know. I'm not quite sure exactly where the chat is. Right. So anyway, so we got to the stage where the landing gear was about ready to go on, and then we were going to be looking at painting it. So there's a couple of things that became apparent. Firstly, the pilot is not quite central. If we look, if we try and look down the barrel of the plane there, down the fuselage, I don't know if you can see, he's not quite central. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to cut a little sliver of sprue off. I'm going to push him over to one side and try and wedge a little bit of plastic down in there. And then hopefully we'll be able to rectify him and the way he's sat. So I'll just get the tray with a little few pieces on that. And we want a tiny bit of sprue. We don't want a lot. So again, I'm trying to keep with the ethos that I'm using tools and equipment that somebody that had just been to the store has just got it one day and thought, you know what, I want to do a bit of modelling. So they've gone down to the store. They've bought the Airfix kit that's in there, which will probably be a Spitfire, and they've brought it home and opened it, and then realised they needed a knife. They've gone rummaging through the drawers and they found a Stanley blade or something. I've actually got a proper knife, but that's because we don't have a Stanley blade. So let me see. So obviously if I was doing this, I would have some styrene or something I would use. Well, to be honest, I wouldn't have put the pilot in because I don't normally like having the pilots in. And this is where things can start to go a bit wrong, because it's tiny pieces. So, there we go. You know what, we could say that he's just peering around the console, just trying to see what's coming in front of him or something. I am not going to spend a huge amount of time trying to rectify this. I'll edit that out. Come on. There we go. Ooh. It's live. So we've got a tiny piece of plastic. We'll move them over to one side. And just slot that down there. There we go. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop a tiny bit of TET down. Now you probably wouldn't have TET, and you would probably have to use either the Revel or one of the cements that we spoke about last week. But I am going to use this. I've got it here, and it will be a lot better finish. Put the bottles near the end. There we go. And then leave that. That will, and hopefully he should now be no longer dying. There we go. Excellent. So now there we have our first pilot, and he's no longer drunk. You watch, it'll dry and he'll be too far that way now. Right. I don't know. So we're on to the next piece now. So normally at this stage you would be thinking of putting the landing gear on, but I'm going to suggest that we don't put the landing gear on yet, because there's a few other things that need to be done first, and ultimately what will happen is these pieces will get knocked off. These pieces will get knocked off and they'll get broke, and then you'll have to end up sticking them all together. And when you're working with things like this, the poly cement and the this Revel Contactor Professional, it becomes messy, and you'll often see kits where things are broken off, you know, and sort of novice builders will then keep gluing it together, and you end up with a big blob of glue at the bottom, and it doesn't look very good at all. Doesn't look very nice. So we're going to leave those last few steps, and it really is just a few steps, as we can see in the instructions here. We've done all this. We've literally got, we haven't put the canopy on, but I'm not going to do that just yet. We've just got these few bits to put on now. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take care of the seam lines. Now, what is a seam line? A seam line is anywhere where two surfaces join together and leave, and there's evidence of this. So you can see we've joined the two fuselage halves together, and there's evidence that this has been joined together because we can see the glue join. I have sanded these back a little bit while I was, you know, setting things up and that, so they don't look as bad as they did. I've left a little bit behind because I didn't want to be spending the whole hour sanding back seam lines, so I've got them all to more or less where they need to be. So we're just going to finish them off now. Now I've again, sticking with the same ethos, we've got I've got basically a beauty file. It's not ideal. They're very coarse. You're going to have to go very, very carefully. I've actually tried to rub this down to take some of the grit out of it. I've rubbed it on some metal. I've even been sort of done that, and just tried to just soften it up a bit. What would be best to use? Well, something like this to take off the bigger seam lines. This is superb. I mean, you literally just, and it's because it's soft and it's like a foam, it molds to the fuselage and to the curves, and you don't end up with a flat spot, which is going to be the problem with this. But we're gonna stick with our ethos and carry on the way we should. There's also other sort of, this is less gritty than that last one. So when you get closer, you can, again, it's not as foamy, but there is some give in that, and you can just gently finish it off and give yourself a nice finish on your plane for painting. These are all available from UMP. I spoke about the sanders last week briefly, and again, they're a great buy. They're probably one of the first things that you should buy if you get into modeling seriously. Your thinners, airbrush, sanders, sorry, and then obviously airbrush, and that comes later if you really get into things. but these are essential for good modelling. But I'm going to assume that you haven't got them yet. Most people don't go out and buy all these things until they've gotten used to it. It's absolutely hammering down outside. And I've got the window open. I've got my blinking roll of kitchen roll on the window. That'd be nice and soggy. Let's bring that in. Put that down there. Just got this apron on, which was made for me by David Mazzola's wife, Diana. She's done a really good job. You can see all the fighter planes on there. We've got some triplanes, biplanes from the different theatres of war, and it's really a really fantastic apron. And I've got pockets. Yeah, it's a really good good piece of kit. Lovely, it is fantastic, and it protects the clothes. And the clothes, your clothes will get dusty and paint on them if you're not careful. So if you want to protect your clothes, it's wise to invest in something like this. Right, so let's start. We've got these seam lines, so very gently we just want to just try and keep with the curve, keep the file moving very lightly. Try not to take out any of the detail on the sides if you can. I know it's difficult. We will be covering rescribing in later episodes or later shows. We'll look at rescribing. But for now, we're just going to try and avoid eliminating the panel lines where possible. You're not going to be able to avoid it completely, not with the tools we've got. But we can do. So we're coming up here again. We just try and keep the file moving very gently. Try and retain that curve. Just literally trying to lift the file up a little bit so that you're not sort of flat on like that. Because when you're flat on like that, you're actually sanding the whole of that top surface. What we really want to do is just try and get this center line cleared away. And get rid of the glue either side of that join where I filled it, because it will show up. Even after paint, you will see the glue on the sides if you don't remove it. So then we come down to probably one of the more difficult parts. Again, because of the nature of what we've got here, this is the wing roots. They're going to be quite difficult to clean. I'm wondering even if we could, I don't know if we can, if these will bend. These will bend just enough to get in on the side like that. And I mean, you can see straight away the advantages of the proper sanders, the professional sanders, if you like, against something like this. I mean, we're struggling away with this, whereas you can come straight in with a thinny stick like that, and it's foam, and you can just literally buff that away like that. So easy. And you'll probably find that, I don't know, pound for pound, you'll probably buy a pack of them for a quid, say. You might get 5 of them. And I'll throw that away because it's been bent, and this will last. I don't know. It's known of these lasting up to a year. Some of the other variants of it. So I don't know. I'm still using mine that I bought when I started, and that's over a year. So yeah, they've been good value for money. I have bought a second set, but I don't know, just keep using them. They're very good. So you can see, as I was saying, you can see the benefits. Let's just try and have a look. I mean, this is not, I don't think it's going to be a brilliant finish. Do what I can. Now, I think we've reached a stage really where this is no longer a viable option. It's just too coarse. So your best choice then is to move on to a sandpaper. There are various different grits. For this, I haven't got a regular sandpaper that you would find in somebody's house. I do know the sandpapers come in various grits, and they do have a fine version. So I'm just going to cut the piece of this off. This would be the equivalent of maybe a fine sandpaper. Probably should have cut it from the back. But now we've got a lot more flexibility here, and it won't be doing as much damage to the plastic. The nail file was just starting to do a bit too much damage. We can just go back over these. Very carefully go back over these. We've got a lovely finish there now. I don't know if you can see the joins almost disappeared. It's nice and smooth. We've got a good join there now, and that will look good when it's painted. So we just do the same with the front. Now the front's a different story. I can see the join there. I can't feel it as much, but I know that when we paint, it's going to stand out. I've got two choices. I can either go ahead and paint and see how it comes out. I can carry on with this, but that's quite frankly probably going to take too long, especially for a live show. Or I can go in and attack it with a file. I'm not really liking that option because it will do so much damage to the plastic that once it's painted, it will just look a mess. So I'm just going to give this a little bit more. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that, because that actually doesn't, that you cannot feel that that line that's there. And I may be lucky, that may not be visible once it's There you go, underneath, because there's a seam line underneath as well. Now, if you're deciding that you want to do a flying Spitfire, you can go ahead now and put your wheel in on either side and your landing gear doors. You can go ahead and seal them in, because they're not going to be, you're not going to risk breaking them off or anything like that. So we're going to leave that like that now. Let's just see. It's fine. And I think we've got a bit of glue here, which I'll just want to buff out. Just take off, so we don't want it showing up on the final. There's actually a fingerprint there. The fingerprints are a nightmare. When you're using TET or any of the solvent cements or anything like that, you need to be extremely careful, especially once you've painted or you've primed, because what happens is you can be gluing something, there, say, and you've got hold of your plane like this, and you're gluing something in there. The vapors rise, and then they sort of you don't see it, but they go into the ridges of your fingers. And when you lift your finger away, you've got a perfect fingerprint on your model, and that's just caused from the vapors softening the plastic up, softening the paint, and your ridges are then depressed into it. So always be careful when you're using glue. If you're working with a finished painted model, we should always be careful anyway, but especially if you've got paint down. Right, so I'm still not seeing any messages along the side, so I don't know if anyone's writing anything. I've got group chat open, but of course that's for the Hangout, so nobody's going to. You're going to be on YouTube chat. Aha! A breakthrough. Let me just quickly get into YouTube. So now we're going to progress on to the painting. Turn the volume down. Here we go. Here we go, right. Live chat. Aha! Hello, everyone. Yes, I am. At last. Finally figured it out. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for the support, chaps. See, we've got Al, Dan. Hi, Dan. Let's go back and see. Cy, hello, Cy, and Ivan, Al, Mateus, is that? Nice, nice of you to come and watch. Ivan, yes, I can see the message now. How can I get onto the wrong chat? Yes, John Moore. Hello, John. I feel very honoured that you've come and watched. I watch your channel all the time, John. You do some really good stuff. Oh no, I'm going to massacre that. I'm just going to say howdy. Hello, Simon Kemp. Andreas, all right? Again, the Jeopardy is high already. Oh. He's up there somewhere. Right, Norman, thanks. So, anyone else expecting this Spit to become the 24 scale Mozzie, as it is the greatest live event ever? No, it's not going to do that. Yeah. So there we go. I finally made it in. I'm not gonna spend time going all through the chat. Numbers start now. Yeah. Numbers start now. Oh dear. All right. So we're going to crack on with the paint. Now for this, again, keeping with the fact that you wouldn't have your own set of decent paints yet, I've selected these. Now the kit would normally come with Humbrol paints, which are these little tubs. Unfortunately, I didn't have any in the suitable colour. I've gone with the equivalent. These are Rebel, the same sort of thing. They're just slightly bigger tubs. I don't know what this one is. They're probably all dried up. I don't know. Let's have a look. Yeah, that needs mixing. I don't know what colour that is. It's probably a black of some sort. So, right, first things first, we're going to wipe the model down. What happened to the... There it is. So we're going to give this a wipe just to remove any of the dust and crap that we've been filing away. You don't want that on there. Now, normally I would recommend you prime. Again, you're not going to have primer, I wouldn't think. If you have got primer, then go ahead and prime. But at this stage, all we can do is go ahead and paint and maybe put a couple of coats on. So I'm going to use a Humbrol brush. Let me see. Yeah, okay, I'm going to go with that. We've got that guide here, which gives us an idea of our pattern. Now, I always paint freehand. So there's a couple of things we can do, or there's a couple of things anyone can do. Actually, there's more than a couple of things, but I'm just going to stick with two, I think, for the moment. So the first one is blue tack. Most households have got blue tack, and what you can do is you can mold it. You take a piece and you basically just put it down in the pattern that you want. So, you know, or you roll it out. And then curve it around how you want to do it. You can do that. That's one method. And you know, depending on how accurate you want to be, will depend, you know, on what you're going to use. This method's not 100% accurate. It's just a rough guide. The other thing you could use is masking tape. That would take a lot longer, but you're guaranteed that you would get exactly what you're looking at. You take care and take the time, you'll have a perfect replica of what you're seeing in the guide. Now that's not saying that the guide is always right, because the guide can be wrong a lot of the times. So that's down to you as a modeler to go onto the internet, go into the library, you know, and research the plane, boat, car, whatever you're building. You research it, and then you look at you gather all your information together, and then you look and you can say, hey, that wasn't green there, that was actually more of a brown color. So they've actually got this wrong, and you would be surprised how often the guides get it wrong, especially when it comes to color. I'm not going to mention any companies in particular, but some companies are a lot worse than others in sort of giving the wrong colors, if that's sort of the way to say it. So you've got your blue tackle. You can again use your masking. I'm going to use freehand because that's what I'm more comfortable with. And I think, first of all, we will take one of the colors, because it's more or less a 50-50 split on the camo. We're going to take the green, and we're basically just going to paint everything green. So that will be our base color. But first of all, we need to get it mixed up. So I'm going to use one of these lid tops as a palette. I've got a feeling this is not going to mix very well just by shaking it. It's probably going to need a good salt. I don't know, it's not actually that bad. I am surprised. I am surprised. They don't normally come out like that when you open them, when they've been sat around for a while. Now, these are acrylics, and acrylics can be a bit thick and don't necessarily brush on very well. You tend to be left with horrible brush strokes. Anyone that's used non-drip gloss on a door, you'll know you're left with them lines where the brush bristles have sort of, you can get that. So we've got methods to fight this, to combat this, and we're going to do that now. And just look at, there they are. So something else that would be in the house somewhere, most of these households have got these, is some cocktail sticks. And these come in handy for a variety of modeling tasks, jobs. And one of these tasks that they're handy for is mixing this paint, and this paint is very thick. I will say it's a lot better than Humbrol paint. I'll give it that. It's got quite a nice, smooth texture to it. It's not gritty or lumpy or anything like that. I am actually very surprised. This is Revel. Well, I shouldn't be really, because I do have the Revel set of paints. But I've got to say, they don't normally come out as good as that. Pop that in there, and then I think what we're going to do is we're just going to use the cap at this stage, and then I'm going to put a couple of drops of water in that cap. That's it, just 2 drops of water in that cap. If it's not enough, I can always come back and adjust it. Let's move over to here, so I don't want to get the cutting mat dirty. Let's give that a stir. And again, I think it's still a little bit too thick still. So I'm going to put 2 more drops. And I'm going to mix that again. Right, that's a bit better. I don't want it as thin like for an airbrush, because it's not going through an airbrush. But I don't want it really, really thick that it's going to leave. We'll see how that goes. Just clean that away because I'm not. This is for more detail. We'll probably use that when we put the brown on. So for now, you need a thicker brush. And I'm going to use this graduate one. Let's try using this. I've never used this one before for painting. I'm not an expert in painting by any means. I just pick and choose my brush on what I think looks the best at the time. So I'm going to go straight in with this green. And already we can see there's a nasty join there. It's not brilliant. This first coat, just a nice thin coat. Don't worry about the appearance of it on this run, because you're not going to get a complete coverage. It is going to look a bit blotchy to begin with. And what we'll do is, when that's dry, we'll go over it again. On this occasion, all our brushing will be like left to right or right to left. And then the next time, once this is dry and we go over it again, we will go from front to back. Not surprised how much you have drunk. All right, who's had a drink then? I can't see anything. Obviously, I'm told the wider the brush, the less chance you've got of leaving bristle sort of runs behind, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to paint the man green. Well, actually, I am. Actually, I am, because I just need to get the majority green. I'm not going to do the propellers green, I don't think. I want to try and leave the spinner alone where possible, because that may be a light colour, and it won't be as easy to paint over if it's had a dark colour go on first. So let's just try and avoid that. The exhaust stacks haven't gone in yet, but that's not a problem. We can paint them separately. Let's look what we've got here. Let's just have a quick look in this cockpit and see what we... I can put a bit of pale flesh colour on that. Towards the end. So yes, I'm going to come in here and I'm just literally going to swamp him with green, because we can't leave in light grey, it wouldn't look right. We'll probably come in with a detail brush later and add some black to the tip of the control stick. Some black maybe to the seat. So once again, don't worry about the horrible lines that are being left. I'm sure it gets a bit awkward because obviously I don't want to get green all over my hands. So what we'll do is we'll flip it over, just do the bottom. We may need 2 or 3 coats just to get a nice finish on this. Ultimately, later in these shows, we'll be looking at paintbrushing, and we'll be looking at other things. And the aim is that by following these shows, you will become more and more proficient with your modelling. And it's hoped that for myself, that I will become more and more proficient from actually demonstrating what I've learned. Because these are skills that will stay with you throughout modelling. They're important skills. You can never ever, you know, it's good to go back and do something like this just to reacquaint yourselves with the hobby as it was years ago. Now, it would have been when I was a young lad. And we can see how quickly this dries just by looking at the other side. We can see that it's already dried on the surface. I just need to leave that a little bit longer so that I can. Now, what we need to do at this stage now, because we could probably do with some sort of foam block to stop it from getting filthy, but we're gonna. Now's the time to put a glove on. If you haven't got a glove, just try and keep your contact with the painted surface to the minimum, because although it's dried on the surface, we can see where it's still wet. Although it's dry on the top, oh, see, little splodge of green there. It's still going to have, it's not fully dry throughout, and you would be able to leave fingerprints behind. Not as important at this early stage, because we're literally using this coat. This is effectively our primer. This is going to be our primer coat, our base colour. It's also going to act as the the bottom coat, the base coat. That's what it is really. We need to get inside that wheel well as well. Just again, we're not too worried with the visual look at it at the moment. Detailing will come at a later point. And there is our primer coat down, our first layer down, and that didn't take long at all. Shut the lid. Now I'm going to leave that, let's see, what time we got now? We're, crikey, we're at 9:30. So that's probably going to be a good point to stop. I could probably go on, but I really want to try and keep these shows down to an hour if possible. We may at some point increase them depending on how popular they become. I may increase them to an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours, especially if it turns out that projects are taking a long time to complete because of the short time of the show. Next time we're going to go over again with the another second coat, and then what we will do is, while that second coat is drying, so that we're not wasting our time, is we will go ahead and paint these wheels. We'll probably paint them on the sprue. It's a source of much. It's a bit of a hot topic in circles in the modelling world. Do you paint them on the sprue or don't you? Quite honestly, it's not something you really want to get yourself into. You do what you feel most comfortable with. If you find it easier to paint them on the sprue, then paint them on the sprue. Don't let anyone persuade you otherwise. If that's if that is the most comfortable way you can find of doing it, then you do it that way. The other way is to snip them off, put them on cocktail sticks, and then you do them that way. We'll cover that next week. We'll cover the pros and cons of that. But ultimately, you've got to do the hobby the way you want to. If at any point you're building or painting something to please somebody else, then you know that's no longer a hobby, is it? That's no longer worth doing. You do it, what makes you comfortable, and we'll look into that next week. I hope you've enjoyed today. Apologies for the not finding the chat. We'll just have a quick brief look down the chat before we go, in case, see whether anyone's so where do we get to? Drink, that would be me. I was having a drink. That was to the wrong chat, talking to mate. I'm right, messenger. Speculation is rife that it's Douglas Bader in the cockpit. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Is it Douglas Bader in there? Well, I can tell you, he has 2 legs. But I think it was Douglas Bader, baloney amputee, or did he lose a whole leg? I don't know. There is a kit coming out. There is a kit coming out with, in honour of Douglas Bader. That would be interesting. I wonder if they're giving it a false leg. You know, that would be interesting to know that. That would, I bet people would kick up a stink. State of the world we live in. Right, anyway, so Dan, anyone hear birds? No, you've got tinnitus, Dan. So I love spooning, so fingers crossed. Right, okay. Birds, I can hear squeaky floorboards. All right. Muppet's being dominated. It's his dog squeaky toy. Yeah, no, it's not. Oh, past 300 subs. Thanks. Also, good show, well done. Right, well, thanks a lot for everyone that's come and offered their support, everyone that's come and watched. Do come back. I have got some great things planned, and you know, hopefully we can all advance together. If you've got anyone you know that's thinking of starting modelling, then you know, invite them along, and we will all learn together, so to speak. Thanks for watching, and until next week, bye.